G'day, my name's Jo Sangster. I'm the Executive Director of the Office of Women's Advancement, and I'd like to thank you all for being here this afternoon in this fantastic venue, which has kindly been given to us free of charge from Doubletree Hilton, so thank you very much for that. The Office of Women's Advancement, in partnership with Women in Resources, has brought this event to you today. It's called A Conversation Worth Having. Throughout the Territory, the Office of Women's Advancement is presenting keynote speakers on issues that are pertinent to the lives of women, and I'm sure as you'll all agree that work-life balance is a pretty critical one, whatever stage of your career or your family you're at. I don't know about you, but I certainly struggle with trying to find that work-life balance, so I'm really keen to hear any tips that anybody has about that. I have 4 young children, and finding that balance is a pretty difficult thing to do, so I'm all ears. I'd also like to thank the traditional owners, both past and present, for allowing us to share this beautiful land that we're on today. The Larrakia people are very generous, both of spirit, and I'd like to thank them on behalf of the Office of Women's Advancement. The Office of Women's Advancement is a newly established agency that answers directly to Minister Anderson. She sends her apologies for not being able to be here today. She is very passionate about making sure that women across the Territory are recognised for their enormous contribution to the Territory across a wide variety of areas, but our focus particularly is on women's safety, gender equality, leadership and participation. So there are 3 key areas that we're working in. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to Linda Young. Linda is the Vice Chair of Women in Resources. She's the Director at the Darwin Coordinators and has over 25 years experience in the resource, transport and logistics area, education and hospitality industries. Prior to working with Darwin Coordinators, Linda was the General Manager of Curtin University's Western Australian School of Mines consulting business. She oversaw the organisation and implementation of consulting projects, seminars, conferences, commercial courses and the running of the Kalgoorlie Metallurgical Laboratory. So she's a woman with a lot of experience. She's a woman with a great sense of humour and a very generous spirit in coming here today to share her experience with us. So please make Linda feel very welcome.
Thanks, Jo, for that. Joanne, sorry, for that lovely introduction. Thank you to the dynamic team at the Office of Women's Advancement for inviting me to be the guest speaker this afternoon. Thank you to all of you beautiful ladies for coming here and sharing your time as well. Thank you to everyone that's joined us for this second event of the Office of Women's Advancement series, A Conversation Worth Having, with this one focusing on recalibrating your workforce, your work-life balance. On behalf of Women in Resources, please accept our thanks to be invited to share this with you. Thank you to the Women in Resources board members that have come along here today as well, and I might just call on you to give us some words of wisdom later on how you juggle your beautiful lives. I'd also like to acknowledge the Larrakia people, the traditional owners of this land that we stand on, and with respect to the elders past and present. I really do feel blessed that we're all here today. So that's big 6 thank yous, and that certainly shows how grateful I am to the opportunity that we're all together for a couple of hours just to focus on our work-life balances. Why am I standing here? Linda Young, busy person, certainly doesn't do as I preach. Well, it started with my first meeting with Susan Everingham, who's the Senior Policy or Project Officer for the Office of Women's Advancement, I do apologise for that, at Java and Spice on June the 14th. Marcia, our Chair of Women in Resources, and I were meeting with Susan to discuss the synergies and aims and objectives of our organisation and the new department. While we're waiting for the meeting to start, Susan and I engaged in some chit-chat And it took me about 30 seconds to realise that this woman had done some research on me. And I like that. I like people that do their research. And I thought, you're a smart lady. So anyway, the small talk started with, Linda, I hear you're the chair of Ruby Gaia. And I went, ooh, cue that little voice, this lady's done the research. And I went, yeah, I was. Up until Tuesday, I was the chair of Ruby Gaia. And poor old Susan had never met me before, just thought, uh-oh, that's a conversation stopper. Where do we go from here? So everything was good with Ruby Gaia. What had happened is I remain a strong supporter of the organisation, and I'm extremely honoured to have been able to help them for 3 years as their chair. I just decided to recalibrate my life and how I was going to invest my time. So that's all good, you know, it was a brilliant chapter. And this was something that I thought I'd been thinking about for a while. However, the catalyst to actually implement this life change was a 40-day overseas holiday with my husband, which is pretty cool. Now, before we go any further on to the holiday story, this holiday was the first holiday my husband and I had taken since 2002. Except for 6 days that we took in 2009. So that's not really good work-life balance, is it? So good on us for doing that. We both should have, and I said we both should have or have a terrible, way of planning holidays. We just didn't do it. Even though we bought a timeshare in Goa in India in '97 and still haven't been there, so we just pay the yearly membership fees and we'll get there, but we'll work on that one later. We just love our lifestyle, we love our friends, we love our work, and to actually take a break and to plan something that actually came up. Talk about a classic example is what I do, say as I do, say as I do, not do as I say, or whatever the one is. No, really, we both work in management, we're mentors, and we are motivators. We're constantly looking at people's, and encouraging people to look after themselves, their work-life balance. We monitor every day, whether our friends or our work colleagues are looking fatigued or stressed, because it's not productive. And here we were ourselves not allowing to exit stage left and take a break. Now back to the holiday. What this break did for me was allow me the space to reflect, observe and think about how I actually spent my time. And I must admit, a few weeks prior to the trip, if anyone said, so you're getting excited, I would have nervous flutters, a little bit like I've got now, nervous flutters which grew from butterflies to feeling actually physically sick the closer we got to going away. Yes, I was excited, but I was also, wondering how I would cope not working and without an Excel spreadsheet for 40 days, because I do love my work and I do love my job. But I was also wondering, how am I going to spend 40 days and 40 nights with my husband? He's a great bloke. Now, don't get me wrong, I love this man very much. It was just that for the last 22 years, we've been going through the process of life. Working, raising kids, being broke, not being broke, changing jobs, getting promotions, moving house again, meeting new people, going to parties, going to Bunnings, life took over and that whole process. So now here I was faced with 40 days and 40 nights in the same space with my husband, and it was just the two of us. So I was a little bit scared. I'd even admitted it to a couple of my girlfriends. How am I going to do this? I mean, how's he going to cope with me? That was one of my things. I struggle coping with me, and every now and then I rope in a girlfriend or two to help me put myself back on track and say that it's all right. So it's quite frightening. And then how was I going to cope with him? Ugh. I mean, it's just there. It's no more kids' conversation or the bill needs to be paid or anything like that. So anyway, is it going to be all right? And we took the plunge and we went on a holiday. Well, I'm really happy to say to you that within 2 weeks, we stopped tripping over each other, we chilled out, we really enjoyed each other's company and many of the life experiences. One day in particular, I looked around at him and felt that original friendship, which was just beautiful. Not the try-hard friendship when you first start to get together and you think they're hot, so you'll say you like anything they like, you know, not though the real best friend friendship, the one that is your best mate. And that was wonderful and an awesome feeling. So then I started to look at what can I do and what am I spending my time with and what can I do to change so I can maintain that original friendship and keep it in the forefront of our relationship rather than simmering in the back burner like it had been. So it really made me stop and think. Like I said earlier, I had been planning this for freeing up some Linda time. I hadn't looked at it at the relationship side, I just looked at Linda time. 12 months prior, when a girlfriend sat me down with a bottle of Grant Burge and my tears and said, Linda, you need to start listening to yourself. So I'd stepped down as treasurer of Darwin Theatre Company, the position I'd held for 2 years, and I'd also notified the beautiful, beautiful women of Ruby Gaia that I would be standing down at the AGM to free up some Linda time. The only thing that changed was after this holiday, I brought that stepping down from Ruby a little bit further. Susan's response to this was priceless. She just looked at me in the eye and she said, good on you. And I went, wow, okay, good on you, I like that. The response from the staff of Ruby Gaia and the beautiful committee from Ruby Gaia was, we want your holiday. Well done, you know, we hear you, understanding. And that also was an affirmation going, this programming is over busy, workaholic, flat out programming. It doesn't have to be. We get so tied up and so trapped in it that it doesn't have to be. And it takes something or your girlfriends to say, hey, let's have a look at what you're doing and how you're too busy helping everyone else and you ain't got time to help yourself. So that was pretty amazing. And then 2 weeks after that conversation, because we were rolled into the meeting as planned, Susan gave me a call and said, hey, I was thinking, your story, it's a little bit of a conversation worth happening. Can we have a meeting and talk about it again? Love coffee. So yeah, we did, and we reflected on that story, and we also reflected on other chapters in my life that I have recalibrated my work-life balance. And also Susan reflected on chapters in her life when she recalibrated her work-life balance. And it's just the little things, and you know, that's the tweaks. So this is why we're here this afternoon, to have a conversation, and a conversation goes two ways, so I will be calling on some people to try and share some stories with us. But let's have a look deeply into what does it mean when we say recalibrating work-life balance. Well, to recalibrate means that you're going to calibrate again. So it's an ongoing process, you're recalibrating. So I'm really good with that. To calibrate, in this content, it is to plan or devise something carefully as to have a precise use or application appeal. So, you know, it's going to be, we're going to set this in motion. This is what we're doing, this is what we plan to do, let's set this in motion. But this time, when we're focusing on work-life balance, we're talking about ourselves for this afternoon. The definition of work-life balance describes a relationship between your work and the commitments in the rest of your life and how they impact on one another. Now, as many of you know, the topic and concept around work-life balance is an industry within itself. There is even an organisation or a company, I'm not quite sure if it's either or, but it's called the Work-Life Balance Foundation. That's how big this topic is. So we all bluff it off, but if you Google it, and you'll see there's over 126 pages on Google about work-life balance. So it's pretty important that we keep trying to recalibrate it ourselves. On a business case, there are strong economic reasons to investigate into this subject further and to work with your staff or your employer to implement, where possible, work-life balances and synergies that work for both of you. I'm not here today to talk about that side of the work-life balance. I'm happy to help in this area later on down the track because it does something that I consult in, even though I don't get it right myself, but I'm working on that. But that's another side of Linda, so we're not here about that today. I'm here to start and generate a conversation around the many experience you ladies, and if there's a gentleman, if you ladies have had to and implemented to take the steps to recalibrate your work-life balances. Before I do, just the way you think about it, because I'm about to come around and ask for the ball to start rolling to listen to some of your stories, I'll just tell you another one that's a little bit different. 1995, I was working at Gove Alumina, and I was on shift, 12-hour shift, 4 days on, 4 days off. My daughter was then grade 5. Her grades started to drop. My husband was working Monday to Friday, but my daughter's grades started to suffer. Fast forward, he was offered a position in Western Australia that took us back to the west, and during that process of moving, we started to reassess what's going on because she was stressing herself out. So it's obviously how do my husband and I work as a team to help another member of the team who's suffering. So what we did is I stood back and stopped working for a period of 5 years, and she ended up choosing to go to boarding school at grade 10. So from grade 5 to grade 10 I stepped back, and then I re-entered the workforce at a base level. And then within 5 years from there I worked myself up to the position that Joanne talked about before as General Manager. So that was my time to shine. The time with Samantha was the time then to assist her for her education, because that was the priorities of our lives. So that's another couple of examples of how throughout your life and throughout my life, depending on the chapter I'm in, do I recalibrate my priorities. So have I got anybody that would like to share a story? Otherwise I might just have to ask somebody.
Linda and I are friends, and she would know that I've only been married 10 years, so I'm married late, and we don't have children, we have 2 dogs. But I'm not a cook, and I've never been a cook. Well, I actually am a cook now. And when I got married, all of a sudden I had to become a cook, and so much so I was a cook. We moved into our house, or a unit, and for 10 days until someone said, "You haven't got an oven." And I said, "What?" And they said, "You haven't got an oven, where's your oven?" And I said, What are you talking about? This is an oven. And of course there wasn't an oven, there was a microwave that was a convection oven. So my work-life balance when I got married, all of a sudden I had to work, I got promoted, I changed jobs, got promoted, and then all of a sudden I had to learn to cook. And then driving home, my husband would even say, "What's for dinner?" And I'm thinking, how come now I'm working, how come all of a sudden I've got to cook? You know, I do all the other things, you know. As women, you know, I just thought you had to keep them happy in bed, sorry, but feed the dogs and, you know, pick up the dry cleaning. I didn't realise that came with cooking, because no women actually say that part of that, they have to cook every night. I married a Catholic boy who has 11 sisters, so I've got lots of sister-in-laws, and apparently they all cook. So what happened to me, I had a bit of a learning curve. It took me a couple of years. So then I decided, I spoke to a friend who's got young children, and she said, just get that Coles online, they deliver the food, you look at their menu plans at that, and just do that. So my work-life balance now is that my husband never asks me what's for dinner. So now every Sunday, the man comes and delivers the food. We've got 10 recipes. If you want something else, go get it. Fortunately for me, he's actually learned to cook, so he's got 4 recipes. So every 2 weeks we might have a different recipe if he learns to learn a new recipe. So it's all about taking steps. It might take a while, getting used to each other. Work, it's not all about work at lunchtime. Sometimes I Google now Donna Hay and Nigella, just something different. It takes time, and but once you get there and make a few changes in life, it's all good.
Oh, well done you, Robin. Excellent, that's a fantastic story. Do we have another one that somebody would like to share? I'm looking at a lovely lady over here. Thank you. What's your name?
My name's Denise Pake. Listening to you talk, a lot of it resonated with me, and I think with the wisdom of hindsight that I can see a lot of my work-life balance has been in chunks, and that in hindsight I realised one of the mistakes that I made was trying to balance everything at once. And as women we want to do everything at once. And that's where we sabotage ourselves. So that it's not about trying to do it all at once. And I clearly remember one Sunday morning when I was an executive in Treasury, Debbie will resonate with this, and I remember being at home on a Sunday morning, and I had work-life balance. I was at home. I was editing budget papers, I was cooking breakfast, I was de-knitting my child's hair. This was balance. I was juggling it all at once. And so it's not about juggle, it's actually about finding balance, and that happens over time. And I know I've said to a lot of people, a lot of women, that to me having kids is you either have them when you're very young in life, so that you've then got me time later on, or you have them when you're older, which is what I did, so that I was established. And I think that worked for me. And the other thing that worked for me was to say, yeah, this is me time, and it's okay to have me time. And about trying to set a culture in my workplaces where I was, about people being able to say, I can walk away from work. But I always said to my staff, the organisation is big enough and ugly enough to look after itself. I worked for the anti-government thing in those days. I'd still say it now for my own business. And that people need to be able to walk away and have their own time, and that's okay. And so I think there's a lot we can do with our culture in our organisations, no matter where we are. And the last thing I'll share is just a quick story to illustrate that. You've probably all worked in organisations where everyone's so busy and you can't take leave.
Oh.
Okay? And it's the wrong thing to take leave because you're letting the team down. Let me share your story. Senior executives in Treasury were known for never taking leave. One did not take leave. This was not the done thing. Then they all went on executive contracts. Part of their executive contract was that they had to take their leave or they lost it. Guess what the conversation was? The conversation was, when am I taking my next leave? And suddenly they all managed to take their leave every year and everyone was okay with that. So it's about the culture that we set, and I think you can do that no matter where you are in the organisation. So for me it's about finding work-life balance over time. You can't have it all at once, but you can have it over the period of lifetime.
You are an absolute gem. Thank you so much for sharing that. You've hit the nail on the head. A couple of big things. It's okay. And that's a big lesson that I need to confidently look myself in the mirror and say, Linda, it's okay. The leave thing resonated very strongly when we moved up from Kalgoorlie, and we did find gold in Kalgoorlie in career opportunities, the people we met and that sort of thing. But we worked big hours in Kalgoorlie, and when we came up, my husband actually walked out with 40 weeks annual leave. Every time he tried to take holidays, they called him back. So there's the take it or lose it, beautiful, because otherwise it's a beautiful work-life balance policy sitting up there in somebody's nice manila folder or on the web that nobody's actually utilising and using. So thanks heaps for sharing that. That's so great. And you're right, it's about balancing, Yes, of course we can. And we're not saying that you can't be de-knitting and cooking and reading a budget thing and sort of doing all of that sort of one thing on a Sunday morning. It can happen, but it's up to you to prioritise where. So have we got another lovely story to share? Okay, this is the lovely Wendy Jetner. She's also one of our board members of Women in Resources, and I forgot to mention so is Robin Miller-Smith. So thanks, Wendy.
Thanks. I just wanted to say, I think it's really important to set other people's expectations of you. As women, we're really keen to go out there and do everything for everybody, our kids, our husbands, our friends. Let's do what everybody else wants us to do, but actually say to people, be able to stop and sit back and say, hang on, I actually need to put your priorities back a little bit and put my priorities a little bit further. I run my own business and I find it really hard to say to my clients, no, I'm not going to take your call at 4 p.m. Korean time, which is like 1:30 a.m. Darwin time. Sorry, can't take your call, you need to fit into my time. I'll come in 6 a.m. and talk to you if that works for you. But just actually putting other people's priorities, and that goes for kids and husbands and friends and dogs and all those other people that put expectations on us. So put them back and say, hang on, I'm important in this too. There are times when you can't do that, obviously. When you've got sick kids or cranky husbands or whatever, you have to make them important. But take time to make their priorities, put their priorities into perspective with yours, from clients to dogs.
You are so right. And when I was talking earlier about that lady that sat me down, looked me in the eye, bought me a bottle of Virgin, listened to me cry, it was the beautiful Wendy Jetner that I got the lecture from. Wendy is, you know, like I've learnt just, and I'm practicing, like I got back from these holidays at the start of June, and I'm really practicing to practice what I, you know, do what I preach. The iPhone timer has actually become one of my best friends to stop me from stressing. The other night, this is how pathetic I need to recalibrate and retrain Linda, is that the other night the little puppy was going, I'm bored, play with me, here's this toy and here's that toy, and I'm still trying to work away because my husband and my daughter are away at the moment, so it's only just me. And I thought, how selfish, I'm trying to work and she wants attention. If I don't give her attention, she's going to break her heart, and that's not fair. So I said, okay, half an hour, and I literally put a half an hour timer on the phone. So I didn't stress about it, and I just relaxed and played with her. You know, just sort of take that pressure off me going, I don't have time, make the time. My godfather said on the phone the other day, we were talking about one of my brothers and his reason for not dropping in for years. And he's a good old gander bloke, you know, that lives in central East Queensland, southeast Queensland, and he's been there all his life. And he talks like he's a very Australian, and he's very fair dinkum with the way he talks, but I won't actually say the adjectives. And he said, you know, darling, there's no excuse. Don't tell me you haven't got time when you're going through to Brisbane that you can't stop in and have a cuppa with your mother. Get up earlier. Wow, yeah, okay. He was talking about my little brother who lives in Bundaberg, travelling through to Brisbane, didn't have time to pop into Maryborough to have a cuppa with his mother. He said, go to bed earlier, get up early, you don't want to watch that crap on TV anyway. And I thought, well, that's so true, you know, it's not a new thing. We all just, you know, this morning I had lots to do, so I got up at 4:30 instead of 5:30. So I got it done so I could prep for here, get myself ready, get nervous, come here, shake, then get a grip and start talking to you guys about 15 minutes after I start talking to you. So it's very true about that. Another good thing that you mentioned, Wendy, was about the phone calls and feeling obliged to answer the phone. One job I had, I was working in a laboratory which was very time orientated. So, you know, I'd have moistures in the oven that came out at this time, and the time was written on the oven. And then I had some fire ash and sulphurs that would do a 3-minute cycle, and then I had this and that, and I ended up with, on my lab coat, about 4 or 5 different timers on me. And then on Fridays I would take watches, timers, the whole lot, put it in a box and put it in the cupboard because I was so time orientated. Fast forwarding a long period of time, I read this book called The Great Sales Book, and it actually, one of the chapters had a full chapter on focusing on allowing your answering machine to be your best friend. Back in the mid-90s, when QA and ISO really started to take off in the world, you know, people were doing these grandiose statements of saying, I will answer the phone within 3 rings. And that's fine. If you want to do that, hey, look, I'm not judging. But this book helped me to say, allow your answering machine to be your best friend. Because if somebody's if it's important, they're going to ring, they're going to leave a message. If it's a hey, howdy doody, they're going to take up your time. You can always ring them back and say, sorry, I got a missed call from this number. But if they leave a message, when you ring that client, you've pulled that file, you're on their chapter, on their page, ready for them. So it's actually more efficient, more productive. They are more appreciative, and something happens. Rather than you panicking to have to answer the phone while you're halfway through a sentence that was a deadline of email that you need to send 2 minutes ago, and you go, what? Oh, yeah, oh, hang on. Don't do that. Allow it to go. allow it to work for you. Technology has put in a lot of tools that can help save, but time management's a different conversation. Alrighty, so we've got some pretty powerful women. I've heard you speak before. Sorry, I don't know your name. Jess Cullen. Jess, you've done some dynamic things. I heard you speak at a youth talk or something. Can you share some of your work-life balances with us?
Sure. Thank you.
Nothing like being put on the spot.
Okay. So my name's Jess Cullen. I work full-time in a local company, and I also volunteer a lot out of hours for various youth organisations and youth projects. Quite heavily involved in most of them. So the work-life balance thing is something that I struggle with as well, and so does my friend Lauren, who's in the same boat as me. It's sort of hard, I think, we're finding because, you know, we're so passionate about some of the projects we're involved in outside of work. The line between work and life is really blurred because we love doing it.
Yeah.
So we sort of try our best. We're very focused on self-care, but we also try our best to set boundaries within those projects and have curfews on things like Facebook and texting each other and emailing each other about the projects. So those sorts of rules are in place to respect our downtime and our home time. But we're also sort of finding that even when we do achieve the work-life balance, it's because we've challenged ourselves to do it. It's not a natural process. It's something that a challenge we're setting for ourselves, and we're achieving it because we're driven and we're motivated and we want to achieve it, not because we think we should and because it happens naturally. So I'm keen to hear some more words of wisdom from people who have been in the biz for a lot longer. But certainly, you know, on that path, trying to get there.
Oh, well done. Beg your pardon?
Another skip one at 10 to 5.
Absolutely, and then we'll get back to that one because that's a really good one. Here we go, Robin.
Okay. At 10 to 5, just as I was getting my car to drive here, I had my IT guy saying to me, can you put some paper into the check printer? Because your check printer's not working. I said, yes, I realise that. It has been working for 3 days. And they said, and they're ringing me from Adelaide, where our IT guys are. And they said, well, can you? I said, no, I'm actually going up to a seminar and I'll speak to you on Monday. Well, what's wrong with tomorrow? I said, well, we've got a public holiday here. And he said, oh, well, what if you want checks? And I said, well, I won't need it tomorrow. I said, oh, no, can you come in tomorrow? I said, no, it's a public holiday and I have got plans. So I hang up, get here, I get to my car and I've got my IT director ringing me saying, Robin, we need to get your check printer fixed because it needs to print checks. And I said, yes, but it's a public holiday. And just straight away I thought, I need to remind people about time, my day off. So straight away I said to him, I'm willing to come in on Sunday morning. I've got a spot between 9 and 11. Would you like to get one of your guys to come in on Sunday? And he said, oh, Sunday? I said, yes, well, tomorrow's a public holiday for me. He said, oh, good point. How about we just do it Monday morning at 9 o'clock? Need a bit of a reminder.
Very good.
There's a classic example about setting boundaries, and that's something that, you know, like you said, it's okay and it's all right to do so. And I think that's a really good one. Also, just in quickly, before we do start to sum up, in response to what you're saying, and you two beautiful ladies in the youth sector are just you know, a great ambassadors for youth. I listened to you speak a fair bit last year. Haven't had been to the events this year, but last year I certainly came along and listened to a fair bit, and it's inspiring to hear these young women talk about, you know, and the dedication and how they're professionals in their own right, volunteering their time. So they're the upcoming ladies that we want to look after and mentor. This beautiful lady over here has probably got some good stories about work-life balance and volunteering volunteering organisations. It's Maisie, she's the NT Women's Network, certainly very passionate and spends a lot of time. Carmel over here is another one that's works in the volunteer sector, donates a lot of her time. We've also got the Ruby Gaia committee members. We've got one here with Marnie and Wen. Who have I got over there? Aditi and Rachel. So there's a lot of women here, as well as I'd pointed out a couple of our board members, and Helen over here that's a board member for Women and Resources. A lot of women here that are juggling themselves, their work, their priorities. Who's yours? Yourself, your relationship, your children, nearly, when you have them, sort of work and that sort of stuff, and setting boundaries or something like that. I found myself at one stage last year or the year before, Rachel helped me with this, that I was actually on 5 boards, and that was just too many. Just so I wasn't, you can be the master of nothing, as that saying goes. But just to finish, I could speak for this subject for hours, but ladies, the ultimate responsibility is ourselves. It's important that we invest the time to reflect, review and plan who we are and where we want to be. I encourage you to give as much time in planning and researching yourselves and your own lifetime plan as you would a business case or a project plan. And I'm going to try to do that too. So thank you very much. I hope you stay around for a little while.
Okay, thank you very much for everybody who contributed to that discussion. I think it was very fruitful. I think it's obviously a topic that's one a lot of us are really trying to get right and think about different ways of doing things, particularly the curfew aspect of the IT. I think Facebook does take an awful lot of time, doesn't it? You can get very addicted to those kind of instant responses, and also the need to take time out to look after yourself. I think when you do those things, you actually look after other people a lot better, because you've got a bit of time to reflect. Something that I'm not particularly good at is making those time out to have a look at what you've done and where you're going. I think that's a really important process to go through, both to improve your home life and your work life, and think about, often we get on this treadmill and we just keep going and going and going without really knowing where we're trying to go. We just know we just have to keep going. So thank you for all of that, Linda. It was really wonderful, and thank you for getting other people to speak as well. That was great. This topic we will be talking about as well in the next Our Conversation Worth Having series. We've got Eva Cox joining us through video link. That link is on the 7th of August, and we'll be advertising that. So we're trying something new. We're doing a video link with women across the Territory. So that's women in Tennant Creek, women in Alice Springs, women in Wadeye, women in East Arnhem, women in Darwin. And I'm sure you'll know that Eva Cox has been outspoken on a lot of issues around work-life balance, gender equality, the difference in pay still. I guess a lot of the studies are still finding, and we all know the facts, that women are not only working full-time, managing families, but also doing most of the housework. So there's still a long way to go in terms of getting true gender equity. So I'd invite you all to join us for that conversation worth having as well. So I'd like you to put your hands together for the Hilton for providing this venue, but also for Women in Resources who've done an outstanding job today. Thank you.